This will be a demonstration of flashback of a pluggable database in a RAC environment with DataGuard. I have earlier published two blog posts of flashback of pluggable database. One is a non-RAC environment, one is in 21C with DataGuard but without using DataGuard broker. So here in this scenario I'm going to show you RAC PDB flashback DataGuard with DataGuard broker DGMGRL. So first I got to verify that everything is set up properly. Now flashback on is not mandatory if you're going to create a guarantee restore point, but when you create a restore point at the primary, it propagates to the standby in 19C, but the propagation is not as a guarantee restore point. So either you should pre-create a guarantee restore point at your standby before you create it at the primary, or you enable flashback on at the standby and assure that you have enough space in your recovery area for the flashback logs. So I'm going to first verify whether I have flashback on from at the standby. So this is my standby. I don't have flashback on, so I could do that. Now I have to enable flashback on, I have to first stop recovery. Okay, even otherwise, to create a restore point at the standby before I create a restore point at the primary, I would have to stop recovery. So let me do that first. So I've stopped recovery. Now I enable flashback. Any restore point creation or enabling a flashback at the standby cannot be done when recovery is active. Okay, I'll just verify that this flashback is enabled. Okay. So I have a recovery disk which is quite large. And my flashback target is 24 hours. So assuming my flashback logs plus archive logs do not exceed this volume, it is okay. Just verify this at the primary. So you just verify my flashback configuration in the primary. Okay, it's 24 hours. Primary is using ASM, so it's in FRA. The standby is the file system, so it's in file system. Doesn't matter. You can have a file system standby for a ASM or RAC primary. Let me just begin recovery again, the standby. Oops. Using current log file, what a mistake. Okay, now it's going to start recovery, the standby. Let me just keep tailing the alert log at my standby. So when you issue an archive log current from one instance of the database in RAC, in recent versions it will force log switch even at the second instance. So both thread 1 and thread 2 go over to the standby and are applied. Just verify again. Okay, I have enough standby logs, so it's going to recover everything at the standby. Now my test scenario is for one pluggable database. So let me just set. So the pluggable database I'm going to use is called PDB1. I just want to verify that it is open in both instances, so I can do transactions from both instances. And there is a table in that which will be my transactions table. Okay, so my application testing is going to be recording into this table. So I have Flashback enabled at both primary and standby. I have a tracking table. Okay, so if I were to query from this one, I have no rows here. So first I start off with a restore point. Now I would like to create it as a guarantee restore point, so that's fine. Create restore point. This is a command you don't run very often, so it's difficult to recall the syntax. So I have a restore point created PD1 app test RP Focon ID 3, that is my PDB, and it's created with guarantee flashback database, and this is the SCN at which point it is created. I do an alter system. Oops, sorry, I go back to the root CDB. Okay, and then I verify that the restore point got propagated to the standby. So the restore point got propagated, it gets appended with the primary, meaning this is come from the primary, but it is not created as a guarantee restore point, remember. So that is why I said you have to have flashback on in your standby. You have to have enough space for your flashback logs and archive logs and for the flashback retention period. But this is the same SCN. Okay, same timestamp. This timestamp is UTC, not Singapore time, because this database is running in the UTC time zone. But that's fine. So now I have my restore point created at the primary. It has propagated to the standby. I can begin my testing. Let me just show you the script. So this is my script where I'm simulating transactions, and for all transactions I'm inserting into this app test. Okay, so the first one will be sequence value 1, and then I will be doing an archive log. So I'm going to simulate multiple archive log generation. I'm going to simulate multiple rows inserted. Every time I do an archive log, I do it from the root, but every time I insert into this transaction table or tracking table, it is in the PDB. So I'm going to simulate some transactions, I'm going to simulate some time elapsed and multiple archive logs. So let's just verify here. So I run this query script. I'm not going to put echo on because then there will be too many lines appearing. So, but we can see the script anytime we want. So yeah, first is one row, then there is a sleep, then there are 3 rows and archive log at each stage. So because I do an archive log from this script, redo is being applied to the standby. So the first row, 3 rows, archive log, 1 more row, and my test as run. I have 5 rows in my table. Initially I had no rows, and the timestamp is 331 now. It's my restore point was created at 328. Okay. If I want, I can even verify the table. Sorry, just clearing something else on the screen. Okay, so sorry, select. Okay, so there were 5 rows inserted, 3, 4, okay, it's not ordered by, let me just do order by. I had already generated a sequence 1 earlier, so that's fine. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and from 331 23 to 331 41, which matches somewhere here because I had sleeps after that. 331 41, and initially I had, so these are all after this flashback time 328, so they're all created after that. So what I want to do is, okay, my test is run, I've tested everything in my PDB, and I want to flashback my PDB. So before I flashback the PDB, I must stop redo shipping and redo apply. So at the primary, since I'm using data guard broker, I connect into DGMGRL. You don't have to be using sys. If you have configured your DGMGRL with another ID for sysdg, that's a very good thing to do. Show configuration. But here I didn't create another ID, so I'm just using sys. Okay, so there is no lag. So first thing is I'm going to set transport off. That is, in SQL you would have done a alter system set log archive dash state 2 is equal to defer. But here I'm just going to set transport off from DGMGRL. My primary database is called RAC DG. Okay. Then I have to do a log switch to propagate this change to the standby. So I'm going to do that here. I go back to the root to do the log switch. So the first log switch here will propagate to the standby, although I did a transport off, this one will propagate. So it did propagate to the standby. Okay. But it now we're going to do a few more, and we will see that the standby is no longer receiving log switches. It's no longer we're going to stop apply also at the standby in any case, but we can see that it's no longer receiving the log switches, the archive logs from the primary. So now we can go into the standby DGMGRL. I could do it from the standby, I could do it from the primary, it doesn't matter. Let me just go into DGMGRL here. So so now there is it doesn't show transport lag because this I don't know why, but I have stopped log shipping, and I'm going to stop log redo log apply as well. State equal to apply off. So to stop log shipping from the primary, the command is transport off for the primary, stop apply the standby. For the standby says apply off. Okay, so you can see here, yes, it has stopped managed recovery, so it's no longer even going to recover RAC logs even if I resume log shipping. Now if this was not PDB, if I was doing recover flashback for whole database, I would have to stop the database and mount it. But here I'm not going to flashback the whole container database. I'm just going to flashback one PDB. So I just have to close the PDB. Go back into SQL Plus. Okay, so PDB1 is still open in read write, so I will just close it. Close it on both instances. So now it is in mount state, which is similar to whole database being in mount state. So I've closed it. Now I flashback this database. So what was the restore point I created? I have if yeah. So this is the restore point I created here, right? Remember, it's a pluggable database, so I have to say flashback pluggable database, not flashback database. Now I could flashback to an SCN or a timestamp, assuming that I have enough flashback logs. But here I created the restore point with guarantee flashback database at primary, so definitely I have enough at the primary, but the one that propagated to the standby is not guaranteed. So you still have to be careful about the standby, that there are enough flashback logs at the standby. You could query your $V database flashback database log to verify that you have enough at the standby. I could show you that. Let me just show you that. Okay, so this is the restore point that propagated from the primary but is not guaranteed. But let me just query my I think it's oldest flashback time, but this is a timestamp format, but this is not a timestamp format. That's why it's a bit dicey here. Let me just show you that I have enough here. Oh, sorry, I need to do a So this is sort of monitoring you would do if you are running your transaction testing for a long period of time. Keep ensuring that you have enough flashback logs. You might want to resize your flashback log area if you are running out of space. So remember, at the beginning I enabled flashback on in my standby, so I have enough. I can go back as far as 29 March 0323 AM, right? So that should be this is a bit dicey here. It says 328, but remember that it is still good enough because it is going to use the archive logs as well. Here the difference of 5 minutes is not significant, but you should be careful when you are running into many hours. I could just run this query here also, for example, before I may flashback my database. Okay, so here it says Here I have a lot of, because my primary database was already in flashback on mode, so I still have a lot of flashback logs going on a number of days, but my standby did not have flashback on until I enabled it, so which is fine. You don't worry about this 323. I have my restore point propagated and I know I enabled flashback on at the standby, so that is fine. Now I'm going to flashback my at the primary. So what is the restore point name? Scroll up and verify that I have the restore point name. Okay, then I have to open that pluggable database with reset logs. Whenever you flashback a database, you do a reset logs, but I'm not doing a flashback of the whole container, only that pluggable database. I will just close and open it again, but before that I'll show you the entries in the alert log. So since I'm on RAC 1 instance of RAC DB, this is my alert log location. Just scroll back a bit. So okay, this is all the normal transactions up to here. Then I said okay, I am going to start doing my flashback. So I first close my PDB on all instances. So whenever you do any PDB open close, it has to synchronize between all instances of your RAC environment. So it has to synchronize between instance 1 and instance 2. In this case, I have only 2 instances. So then it got closed here. After that I said let me flashback the database. Okay, so the flashback started. There is the media recovery, like I told you, it's not just flashback logs. Flashback does include media recovery of archive logs. You have to be careful. You have to ensure that you still have the archive logs and the flashback logs. Now here it doesn't show the flashback logs that were applied, but it does show the archive logs that were applied to do the flashback. So when I specified the flashback command here, it also did media recovery and completed the flashback. After that I did a pluggable database open reset logs. Okay, this listener setting is always there whenever I do a change to a database or pluggable database inside the database. So here I did a open reset logs, and now it's verifying all the data files of that PDB to ensure that they're still there. Because open reset logs is independent of anything. It doesn't know I did a flashback before this. It just knows I have asked for open reset logs. So it's going to check all the data files. It's going to do a dictionary check as well for the data files. Okay, it's going to online your undo. To do a flashback of a pluggable database, you have to be running in locally undo managed table spaces, available since 12.2. Okay, so after that, again, because it's a RAC, it has to synchronize between 2 instances. So there is synchronization between 2 instances of the state of that PDB. So for PDB1, it is online the undo table space. It takes a control file backup, and finally it says yes, I have opened I have done open reset logs. So this is my last command. I'll just close it again and open it on all the instances. Actually, when I did open reset logs, it opened only in one instance, but I just to be careful, I do a close on all instances. Sorry, let me just check something else. Okay, so I opened it on all the closed it all the instances. Let me just open it again. So now my PDB is open. So I can see I reopen PDB1 at this time. Okay, this is, remember, this is UTC time. So what about my data? Did it get flashback? Yep, everything got reverted from the table. I could also check by sequence. Oops, what was the sequence name? It was app underscore test, app no underscore test. So the sequence also got reset too, because when I did all those inserts, they went as high as number 6, right? You can see it went up to 6. So sequence is reset, table is reset. So fine, my primary database is good, flashback is completed. What about my standby? So now I have to go to the standby. I have stopped redo shipping and the primary, remember. And I have stopped redo apply at the standby as well. So if I do a okay, so now I do a flashback of the standby, of the PDB at the standby. This is a standby device, so the flashback command should say standby. At the primary, the flashback command would just say flashback pluggable database, means implicitly primary. For standby, it will say standby. And the restore point here is that got propagated from the primary, has a slightly different name. It's appended with underscore primary. So it's flashback completed. Let me check the alert log. So here also you can see this is the last time I canceled recovery. Then I did a flashback just now, right? 349.52, and it did a flashback restore, and it completed the flashback. So this is completed. Now I can resume redo shipping and redo apply. Libraries continue from here only. I think I have too many nested shells, but doesn't matter. So I'm using the data guard broker, so I'm going to start redo shipping using DGMGR. Oops. If you are not using DGMGR, you just say alter system set log archive dash state 2 is equal to enable, to re-enable. But since I'm using DGMGR, I have to do it through DGMGR. RAC DB. Okay, so now you can see immediately archive logs got shipped to the standby. But just to verify, I can do another switch archive log. Okay, so you can see archive logs are now shipping to the standby, but they are not being applied. They are being shipping, but they are being shipped but not applied. So now I have to resume apply the standby again. If I were not using DGMGRL, I would do alter database, recover, manage database, cancel. I'm sorry, resume. Alter database, recover, manage database using current log file, disconnect from session. But since I am using DGMGRL, I'm going to do it from DGMGRL also. So I can do it from. Oh crap! Because I was using SQL plus here. Okay, doesn't matter. This is curation. Edit database tdby set state is equal to apply on. Okay, so you can see it immediately started applying. The first is going to apply all the archive logs it has received but not applied. Okay, so then, so what was this confusion here? At one point it said there was a mismatch, right? So then it tracked, right? So because of the flashback of the database, it said there's a mismatch in SCNs. Recovery was stopped for a while for the archive logs that were issued before the flashback, and then it says okay, now I have received the archive logs after the flashback and I can resume recovery. So this, don't worry, don't be scared when you see this message, because I did a flashback at primary and standby. Because when I did a flash, it received the redo markers from primary for the flashback at primary and says oops, there's a difference between the primary and the standby, so I will stop recovery here. But then it said okay, now I have received the subsequent redo markers from the archive logs and I can proceed. So this is a point where you might have been worried, and this is a sort of scenario you should practice and rehearse a few times before you actually do this in a production environment. Okay, because this is very scary, right? These sort of messages are very scary. It tells you that they are not consistent. It tells you that you need to restore, but no, it resumed afterwards because it verified now I have the redo that from the primary matches to, I have also done a flashback at the standby, so now redo from primary matches the standby state. So let me just continue here and let's go back to SQL plus. Okay, so now it is applying. But how do I know that my standby is good? Okay, so for example, if I can connect all those rows that were committed earlier, if is here, right, are all reverted. So primary is good, but I want to verify my standby. This is a problem. I did a problem with this. If you do a tail from an S shell which is invoked from SQL plus, it just hangs. You can't do that again. So you got to kill it now. Okay. I'm at the standby. Can I query because I don't have the database open here? it's only mounted but not open. So what if I do this? Then alter pluggable this PD1 open read only. It can only open read only because this is still a standby database, but just to be careful I specify open read only. Session set container is equal to PDB1. Yep, that's correct. So the standby is also reverted. Recovery is resumed at the standby. This is just a message that comes in because I resume recovery and from DGMGRL, so all those messages were still coming in. It did not yet return this completed managed recover session, but it is in recovery mode. We can verify that again from here. Go back to root. And it is recovery. It is applying, receiving and applying. Now there's one more thing you need to do after you verify all of this. Verify your primary is good, your standby is good, your users are happy, they've done a sign off. You need to drop the restore point. If you had created a guarantee restore point, you need to drop it because otherwise it will keep generating flashback logs. Let me just so I need to drop the restore point that I created here. And then where am I? Oh yeah, this is for a PDB, not for the whole CDB. So I have to say for the PDB. Okay, and then I do an redo logs and archive logs are always for the whole CDB, so this is not at the PDB level. And then I can just go back here at the standby and verify the restore point got dropped. A restore point that is propagated from the primary to the standby is dropped when it is dropped to the primary. A restore point that is created locally at the standby does not get dropped until you explicitly issue a drop command at the standby. So it's got dropped and everything is hunky-dory. Everything is fine. Now my standby is so I created a guaranteed restore. First thing I did was verify that I have flashback on at both primary and standby. If it is not enabled, I enabled it. To enable flashback on, I have to stop recovery the standby for a short while. Once it's enabled, I created a guaranteed restore point at the primary, verified that it got propagated to the standby as a non-guaranteed restore point. Then I have to ensure that I have enough space in my recovery area for flashback logs and archive logs. Keep monitoring that while your tests are in progress. I ran all my test transactions, then I decided to flashback. So before I flashback, I stop redo shipping from the primary using DGMGRL or using alter system set log archive dash state 2 is equal to defer if you are not using DGMGRL. I stop redo apply at the standby using DGMGRL or using alter database recover manage database cancel if you are not using DGMGRL. Then I flashback pluggable database to restore point. Then I alter pluggable database open reset logs. Okay, so that reset logs is only for the pluggable database, not for the whole CDB. Then I close and open the pluggable database again across all instances. Then I resume redo shipping using DGMGRL, using redo apply using DGMGRL, and then I query the pluggable database both at the primary and the standby. So the 6 transaction rows in the APPTX test table did get reverted. Even my sequence got reset back to the previous value. So you can flashback a pluggable database. This feature has been available since 12.2. You can flashback a pluggable database with the standby. If not using DGMGRL, you use the SQL commands to disable redo shipping and redo apply. If you're using DGMGRL, you should be using DGMGRL commands only. So that's the scenario. One caveat is ensure you have enough flashback area. You ensure you have flashback on at both locations. Thank you.